All right. Hey, everybody. This is James Mulvaney. Joining me today for Working Lunch is going to be Jonathan Finch. We're going live every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. We talk to different guests and we discuss 3 actionable strategies that you can implement basically immediately to assist you with growing your business, growing your team, or growing your audience. We're going to go live. So if you've got any questions throughout today's stream, please put them in the comments. We're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A at the end. And also, if you miss any of today's session or you don't have time to watch, it's going to be available to watch again on demand via LinkedIn. We're going out on Facebook, YouTube, and also Periscope on Twitter. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest today. Jonathan, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. I'm trying to work from home today without any Wi-Fi, so that's been interesting. I never thought I'd be doing that, but
I must admit, when it looks pretty good considering. When you said earlier you're joining on 4G and a mobile, I was like, oh, is this going to be a bit dodgy? But actually, it looks and sounds fine. So
good.
So welcome to Working Lunch, Jonathan. I guess start off just telling everyone about your background. You're chief trainer at Sales Geek, and tell us what you do, and tell us how you got involved in sales in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been in the sales industry for the last decade. It makes me feel really old when I say that. Sales for me, I was one of those probably weird people that you meet who actually said from school, I want to get into sales. I want to end up in sales. Most people just end up sort of falling into it out of another profession or end up in a sales role. But what we do at Sales Geek, I mean, we help businesses all across the world with sales strategy, sales training. We work with big businesses, small businesses, in essence, just help people generate more revenue. In any way, shape or form, really. So a number of different ways, but it very much depends on the business, really, as to how we sort of get involved.
I do think, actually, like having seen all your social posts and everything, you've got quite a cool brand, quite a cool kind of vibe going on in your office. You've got the wall of like glasses and everything, which I think is pretty nifty.
I was going to say, I haven't been up to the bunker in quite a while with our sort of great bunkers from the Geek bunker. Yeah, we very well. As soon as Boris announced that everybody was going to be working from home, me and my business partner quickly jumped in the cars, drove up there, and picked up all the IT equipment. And most of it has ended up in my living room. So that's where we're from at the moment. Different bunker.
Cool. Okay, so let's get into it. You're kind of obviously an expert in sales, particularly, obviously you're training people. So when you turn to training people, you're working with businesses and trying to, I guess, implement procedures and policies and kind of getting their sales sort of kick-started, really. So let's get things off. Topic number 1, social selling.
Absolutely. Well, I think social selling is a term that gets thrown around so much, and people struggle to understand what it is. I mean, if you went back 7-8 weeks ago, if you'd have wanted to talk to me around social selling was a full strategy, not just necessarily around social media. Social media is something that would complement your social selling strategy, but it was only part of it. And then overnight, within about, 24, 48 hours, everybody got plunged into this. We're not going to be socially getting together. We're not going to be getting together at gatherings, at networking events. So the whole part of a social strategy really went out the window. And I think it's been really interesting seeing over the last few weeks how that gap has been filled. And realistically, it's coming to webinars and online network meetings. And I don't know, it always fascinates me when we talk about social selling and the difference between social selling and social marketing, because I think people make this mistake quite a lot. Okay. And we'll start off by saying, we're going to do some social selling. And then that strategy behind that is for them to put more posts up and more things on LinkedIn or on Facebook. And that for me isn't selling. That more falls under marketing. I don't know what your view is on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny that this is the age-old thing, isn't it? There's so much debate over the differences between sales and marketing. And I do think kind of in recent years, because obviously most companies now are focusing primarily on their online, strategy, which might be, via the website. It might be by booking, calls with people or booking appointments or indeed through social marketing. But, there is definitely a difference. You need to have a bit of an understanding of both, I think, especially if you're running an online business.
Absolutely. I think there was this, I don't think it's quite as bad as it anymore, but everybody assumed that if we just went onto LinkedIn and started putting loads of posts out, we're going to start generating loads of leads. And you can generate some great inbound leads. Probably, I think we pulled that stat from our CRM a little while ago, and it's like 82% of the leads that have gone through and converted had some way, shape or form been influenced by social media. So that might have been someone commenting, someone liking, us reaching out to somebody on there. But social media is a huge part of our strategy. And I think we sometimes overcomplicate it. And if you think of LinkedIn like a networking event, so It's 24/7, 365. Anyone can log on. The only thing that you have to do to literally step into this networking event, if we think about it like a physical networking event, is log on. We log onto our phone, and then we are now in the networking event. And within this networking event, you've got thousands and thousands of people that are all stood around having different discussions. And for me, that represents, when you look at the feed, somebody shouted something out and other people are commenting on it. Very similar to you get at a network event where people are in really small groups. One of the biggest mistakes that we see on social media is people go onto LinkedIn or access this networking event and stand there and go, "We do social media training for small businesses."
Right, okay.
And they wonder why, when they put that status out or they put something out there selling their services, that nobody's getting back to them, because to them, this is a great service. It's something that we're offering to people, and it's doing great things for them. So why aren't people looking for it? And a big part of this for me comes back to that trust element. And I know I personally have been at a networking event where you've seen that person continually walking around just trying to sell, talking about me, telling what I can do for you, without really necessarily getting to know anyone else within the event. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we see within social selling, and the mistakes people make from a strategic perspective, is that they assume that by going on and just offering their services and advertising their services, that's going to be enough to generate leads. And you wouldn't do that at a normal networking event.
Okay.
So why do you do that online?
So what's the key then? If you're going to go into, there's tons of LinkedIn groups now, which I'm constantly being invited to. Same goes for Facebook. Some are very active. Some have got thousands of people in, constantly just posting stuff all day. So what's the key, do you think, to sort of standing out amongst the noise?
For me, it's reasonably simple. Everybody assumes that the money on LinkedIn is on your feed, it's on the comments, and it's on the likes. For me, it's not on any of those things. I mean, we get tagged in a lot of statuses. So someone might say down in London, over in Dubai, wherever, say, "Were you looking for a sales trainer?" And we've got quite a good following. We're very got a very valued following. But they will go on and will comment and tag us into it. And often, by the time we get tagged into it, we might be the first name on there, but even by the time I see it, 20, 30, 40 other comments or likes have come onto that. It's, for me, really why it's so crowded in the feed. The real money on LinkedIn is within the messaging function.
Yeah, I do agree.
Having the ability to turn those likes, those comments, those shares into a message and into something that's face-to-face. I mean, realistically, if you went to a networking event, it depends what you were selling, but it would be very unlikely that you would walk in and assume that you're going to pitch someone at that networking event and close them at that networking event. You go and you do your branding stuff there, let people know, and you'd be arranging a meeting offline. So very similar when you look at LinkedIn. If you see someone that you go, "That's a great prospect for me, I'd love to speak to this person," why are we trying to attract them on the feed? Go and speak to them directly on the messaging function. And that's
so it's basically like, sometimes you go to these networking events and everyone has like a 2-minute thing to say what they do, and then afterwards you think, "Oh, that guy sounds really interesting, I'm going to up and speak to him," or I'm going to up and speak to her. So it's basically using that same kind of thing and building those connections after the kind of the initial pitch has taken place. And what would you suggest in terms of, how do you kind of single out who's going to be valuable to your business when you're faced with those groups or those, threads with tons and tons of people? What's your kind of approach to say, look at someone's profile and think, are they right for me? Are they right for our business as a prospect?
I think a big part of this for me is around target audience. And I mean, it's something that constantly gets thrown around within the sales space. But I truly believe that I only think 10, 50% of businesses really truly understand who their target audience is. I think one of the mistakes that we make is that somebody will come to us and go, "We'd like to work with you." So an inbound inquiry will come to us. We'll deal with that inquiry and we'll assume that is a good prospect for us. So when we then go looking for our next client or our next prospect, we're judging it off the one that we've had in, we're judging it off our past experiences. If you're going to go out, we call it hunting. So rather than farming our existing clients, if you're going to go out hunting on social media, cold calling, however you're going to be outbound prospecting to people, it's very time consuming. So you've got to work out who that target audience is. And the easiest way to look at this is from a return on investment perspective from your time, who will provide the most commercial value to you. Now, commercial value might not necessarily be the most revenue. I mean, we've got a client that we work with, he's definitely not our biggest revenue generative client, but they also go around shouting about how much they enjoy working with us to all of their network. And they've probably introduced us to 10, 11 other clients. So they, for me, are a great target audience because they're going to be a fan of our business, and they're also going to go out and, and let everyone else know how much value that they're getting from working with us. I mean, target audience, I could talk about for another hour. I would definitely say There's plenty of tutorials online. If anyone's struggling with this, give us a shout. We do this with all kinds of different businesses. But once you've worked that out, then you can look at how to go outbound and prospect and get in contact with these people. Otherwise, you're wasting a heck of a lot of time.
One of the things I've always been kind of quite passionate about, and whenever I launch a new venture or sometimes when we're developing ideas, is coming up with personas. So, you know, saying like maybe coming up with like 3 or 4 different kind of, give them a name, give them a, you know, agenda, give them an identity and everything. And you know, what job do they do? And just kind of like figure out like, you know, 3 or 4 people who would be your ideal prospects. And I find that works quite well.
I think the analogy that you mentioned there about having 3 different sort of prospects, a fantastic analogy. And the way, I suppose it's very similar for me to having a white wall, and you decide that you're going to throw darts at this white wall. You're never really going to know if they're where you were aiming because it's a completely white wall. But some of them will land on the wall, some might land on the floor. Immediately, if you put a dartboard on that wall, you're going to aim for the middle of that dartboard. Now, you might not hit it straight away. You might be a little bit out or a little bit further out from that, but you're going to start getting better at it. Not every one is going to be a bullseye or a triple 20, but you are going to land a few of those triple 20s or a few of those bullseyes because you've now got an aim and a bit of a strategy for who you're going to be going for.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to sort of next topic. I think it links not quite nicely. So, sort of sales skills. You know, what are your top pieces of advice for someone who says, you know, oh, I don't like selling, or I don't really know what to say? And I certainly think a lot of people when they first get into business, I remember feeling like this quite a few years ago now. But you know, I was more of an ideas guy. I was kind of learning a bit of code and that. I was kind of a bit more nerdy than I am now, I guess. A little less, you know, educated when it comes to sales and marketing, but I remember feeling quite petrified at the time, thinking, oh, I've really no idea what to do, what to say in a sales situation.
And I think that the biggest thing there that you mentioned is it's a sales situation. For me, the very first part for anyone new to sales, anyone that's struggling with sales, is because we put pressure on ourselves or we get pressure from our leadership team that we need to be making sales. Which obviously is part of our role and it's what we need to do. But if we look at this differently and sort of to that first point of contact, so that first call, you're not allowed to sell anything to someone. You can't actually physically make a sale on that call.
No.
What we're trying to do here is see if they've got any problems, see if they've got any challenges, the person that we're speaking to. And if they have got problems or challenges, then see if we can help them with them. That changes for me the whole dynamic of how I'm looking at mentality perspective, because I'm not going into this thinking, I need to ask this person for this amount of money. At the end of this, I'm going to ask them for some money. Because what happens then is if you're doing your fact find correctly, you're asking the right sorts of questions. And also from your perspective, you're not thinking about that end revenue. It makes you a lot more curious. So if your first aim within the call isn't to try and sell them something, but is to find if they've got a problem or find if there's something that they're finding challenging, then that's the first aim of the call. And that for me changes the whole dynamic about how you'd even think about even cold calling or social outreach to someone. You're not trying to sell, you're trying to see if they've got any problems.
Okay. So what sort of questions could you ask to sort of find that? I mean, I guess it varies depending on their type of business, but so is that something you'd suggest if someone's starting the sales process or trying to think about, okay, how can I design a sales process for my business? It might be identifying, I mentioned before, like, first of all, figure out who your target audience is, and then is it find out what potential problems they have, or is it just a kind of blank canvas? You want to ring someone up and say, hey, what problems are you having at the moment? What's your approach to kind of get that information out of them?
I suppose it very much depends what you're selling. If you've got a solution to every problem, be as vague as that. And I think if we're outreaching to people, just taking a step back from questioning, the first thing that we need to do is research on people. I don't believe there's any such thing as a cold call anymore. We can, in theory, go and buy data sets and just start cold calling. We could, in theory, do that, but it's not a bright way of doing it. With all the information that we have on LinkedIn, on companies' websites, on news sections, on Facebook, all over social media, we should never really be going into a lead cold. We should be going in with an idea of a hook and angle. Okay. So the first point, I was doing a training session at the start of the week with a company around questioning techniques and how to start that conversation off. If I just rung you up and said, it's Jonathan calling from Sales Geek, I just want to see if you've got any problems or challenges with your sales team. Probably, you might go, actually, yeah, we are having a bad week. I'd love to speak to you, but it's not very likely. On the other side of things, if I've done some research correctly and I've seen from your perspective that you've just recruited 3 new members of the sales team, or you've been advertising for 3 members of sales team, I now know that there is a very realistic potential that we could help you if you've not already got a solution in place for onboarding them, for working with them from training, making them feel comfortable to get on the phone. So a lot of different things we could do to add value to you, which now means that because I've done that research, when I contact you, I can talk to you about that. And it just shows for me another level of care and that direct questioning.
So it's basically about specifics, trying to be specific in your initial question and your kind of opener, I guess, and also doing your research and actually rather than just like ringing people out of the blue, just like trying to have a bit of an understanding of who that person is, I guess, and also what the sort of needs, wants of the company that they're working for or that they own.
Absolutely, and I think that the first thing that you can ever do that always opens up that initial contact, whether this is an outreach that you're doing on Messenger and it's an outreach that you're doing on a cold call to someone, or even if you're just going up to meet them at an event, if you know that person's going to be there, you've researched them before and you've got something that you can compliment them. I mean, people get in contact with me through the messenger function and go, "Hi, Jonathan, love that video that you did the other day regarding X, Y, Z," or "I was listening to that webinar that you and James did on LinkedIn Live. I really like this point of it." Of course, I'm going to respond. I've got manners. Most people in the marketplace have manners. And at minimum, you will get a response from them. Once you've opened up that response, you can then start seeing if there is anything that you can help them with, rather than just diving into start and going, "I need to ask specific questions that will help me sell my product." People can see through it. We've been through this sort of stuff for the last decade, really.
And so what's the next step? Once we've established that you've kind of got their attention and you're like, yes, I've just hired 3 new salespeople. I don't really have the time to train them, for example. What's the next step to kind of then turn that person from someone who's kind of interested into actually converting them?
I think that the first point of this is to start at the end. And I think it's one thing that salespeople and I've missed out on in my career is actually looking at the bigger picture from that client's perspective. Because before I can actually go, "Here's how we can add value to you from a training perspective," I need to know a lot more about the department, a lot more about their end goals and what they're trying to achieve. These 3 people that they've just recruited, what's that going to be? Why have they brought these new people on? Was it because they've let some people go? Which, if it is because they've let some people go, was that the individuals that they've let go for? Was it that they had an issue within the business? Was it that they weren't training them or doing things effectively before? And I think finding out 2 sides of that, really, where we are now, but also where's this company trying to get to? And also where has this company been before, actually helps you get a much better picture. And for us, if we're going to work with any form of business, we always have to spend quite a lot of time looking at that. And we call it a discovery or a diagnostic. Because it's similar to me, like it's the age-old sales thing, but you go to the doctors and the doctor says, you said to the doctor, "I've got a chest pain." And doctor, she says to you, "Okay, we're going to have to do some surgery." You're going to dive back and go, "What? I don't know whether I need surgery. I just said I've got chest pain." Right. "Oh, no, we definitely need surgery. Yeah, it's going to be open heart surgery. We're going to have to go." We go, whoa, not going to need that. So unless you do that diagnostic up front and the doctor pats your chest and listens to your chest and gives you an x-ray and finds all that out first, might go, "Oh, don't worry, you've probably just got a bit of indigestion, it's a paracetamol." And similar, I think, from a sales perspective, unless you do that diagnostic effectively in all industries, this isn't just for sales training, doesn't matter what you're selling, I think you would lose a lot of credibility if you don't effectively do that. I think you can tell how experienced and how good a salesperson is by the questions that they ask.
So the diagnostic, is that something you kind of have as like a part of your sales process as a free offering? Like, you can basically say, first of all, you got on the phone to people, you send them a message saying, like, "Do you have any problems? I've seen recently you've hired people, for example. Would you like to?" Is that the kind of way to kind of get them down along to the next sort of stage of your process?
It very much depends on the business. I mean, for a diagnostic, we charge for it. We don't do it as something that's completely free. It's something that we charge for, and it's part of that longer process that we do with a client. We've got different ways of doing that.
Is that a way of qualifying them then? Is that so because if the people are willing to pay for a diagnostic, they're willing to spend more on other things? Is that kind of like a qualification layer? Or
it's a very good point, that, because we didn't used to charge for the diagnostic, and what we found a lot of times we were going in and doing a heck of a lot of work up front. What would happen with the person at the other end would go, "Brilliant, we've got all that information regarding what's wrong, we'll go and try and fix it." 3-4 months later, we'd get a phone call back going, "We tried to fix it and it didn't quite work out. Would you be interested in coming back in?" We then go back in, but that business is 3 or 4 months down the line of potentially making some quite drastic wrong decisions, because they've got the data available there as to what's wrong with their sales department, but they might not necessarily have the solutions there. And that's very much what we do with businesses. We don't just sort of consult and go, "Here's your diagnostic, that's what you need to go and do." I mean, we work with businesses over 6, 12, 18. We've got clients that we've been working with for over 36 months. Which we are physically in their business, in their sales department, helping them generate more revenue. So yes, there is an aspect of qualification there. But I think also from our perspective, looking at what that diagnostic needs to consist of. I mean, we've got something that we call the Sales Geek NOT. So if they've got a team of between 10 and 50 salespeople, We will spend some individual time with the sort of managers on that level, but we also want to hear from the sales people, the individuals, because often what the salesperson thinks is the problem, the sales manager thinks is the problem, and the sales director thinks is the problem, and the CEO thinks is the problem, will be four different things.
Yeah.
So we do what's called the Sales Geek MOT, which has got different layers in it. Some of that goes to the sales execs. It's like a survey, which they can fill in there. It comes back to us. We can collate all that data. We then do that with all the management. We then do that with all the directors who are involved from a sort of commercial perspective. And then we can start finding out where the challenges are. And I'm going to stick my head on the line a little bit here. But the bulk of the time, the biggest challenges that we see aren't skills-based. They are cultural issues that you see within the department.
Interesting. And I think, I don't know, maybe there's a perception that generally speaking, a lot of sales floors are very egotistical and kind of very, macho environments. Do you think that contributes to it? Am I cheeky by saying that, or?
Never heard that. That's just that's something no one's ever said before. I think it very much depends on the departments. The best salespeople I have ever met are not your out and out, suit slicking, typical sort of stereotypical salespeople. For me, I've always seen that the best salespeople have an ability to listen, ability to really empathize with a client, and a real ability to understand. And you often don't get that from that pushy salesperson who's trying to push something onto you.
It's maybe an old school way of looking at it. Then I think there's definitely still a lot of companies that seem to adopt that approach. And I guess some industries it maybe works better than others. But like I'm on your side really. I've always thought you've got to try and deliver value to the people, the person you're speaking to up front. And as you say, empathize with them, really trying to get a good understanding of what they want or their what sort of wants and needs or the problems, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, understanding those problems and the depth of those problems. I mean, we talk about this. We talk about that like an iceberg. And when the client ever comes to us and says, we've got a bit of a problem with our sales department, or we've got an issue generating revenue, that's the tip of the iceberg. So the little bit above the water layer that you can see there. And often when you start diving down into that, there's a whole chunk of iceberg underneath it that if you just try and solve that first problem that they've got there, you never actually solve all the rest of it underneath it. And you sort of putting a plaster on something that probably just needs a little bit of keyhole surgery. I like my doctor's analogies, you can probably tell.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, speaking of doctors and sort of crisis, kind of let's move on to our next topic. So we've sort of had touched on social selling. We've had quite a few questions in already, so we'll answer questions at the end. But if anyone's got any questions, please put them in the comments. Love to take questions at the end. Anything about sort of sales, sales skills, what methods of selling you're trying, or anything like that. Obviously, at the moment, there's this crisis going on. A lot of people have had to change their businesses very drastically. We were sort of having a conversation before we came online with this. Both of us, we've obviously had companies, we've had to move everyone to remote working, and actually, people are going to have to change their sales strategies to some extent, because some industries are really struggling. Some other industries seem to be doing very well. What sort of approaches do you recommend to kind of keep people motivated and keep sales coming in during these times?
I think that's it's a very broad question, that. Yeah. And I suppose to bring it back into something that we can quite easily discuss. We've seen three different types of businesses really within this. You've got the ones who are burying their head in the sand and are just going, let's just tighten down, knuckle down on everything, and we'll just hold in until this storm has passed. And once it's passed, then we'll come out again. And we've seen that quite a lot across industries, which is sometimes the best type. There are certain industries where you can't sell at the moment, you can't market your services at the moment, you're not going to make any business. So we've had to furlough quite a lot of their business. You've also got the companies who are the complete opposite of that, who've gone, right, you know what, we are really going to use this time to our advantage. I like to think that we've been like that. We've probably spent the first week a little bit, what are we going to do with this? And then we really felt like we could grab hold of it. We've changed a lot of our direction as to who we were aiming at. We've now got some US clients. We've never really worked over in the US before.
Interesting.
But we've actually started targeting over there.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And you've got those sort of people who I think were really, although they are knuckling down and going, we can't generate as much physical revenue at the moment. We're going to change things slightly strategically, and we're really going to use this time to work on ourselves, to work on our business, and make sure that when we come out of this, we're stronger and stronger than ever. And then I also think you've got the third part of that, where people are almost ignoring this. And it bemuses me when I look on Facebook and I look at some of the messages that are, and the videos that are the sponsored ads and things that are on there. that are the same messages people were putting out 12 weeks ago. The world's a different place. Things have changed. We either have to adapt or we will become extinct. There's no way of looking at that any differently in my head.
Interesting. Okay. And how would you say you should change your messaging then? If you think, again, and I suppose this is more like a marketing thing, really, but there's lots of there's different trains of thought. Some people are like, cut down on your media spend. Don't be buying ads. And there's other people who are like, no, be buying ads. People have got loads of time at the moment. Everyone's on social media more time than ever. People are sat listening to the radio or listening to podcasts, watching TV, etc. So there's plenty of opportunity to kind of get your marketing and sales messages out there.
This comes down to me for attention though. I mean, everybody is always, from a marketing perspective and from a sales perspective, we are always competing for people's attention. If we're getting attention, that means that we can turn that attention into something tangible where we can sell it to them. It doesn't matter whether that's people looking at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok's a new one where everybody seems to be going, and that generation seems to be really pushing themselves towards. But for me, it depends what you're trying to gain out of this. If you're trying to push a message at the moment that is a big product that you're trying to push to someone and sell, and you realistically know at the back of your mind it's not the right time to be pushing that, people will be thinking about other things, it's the wrong message. We had a course that we used to do, the Social Selling Video Challenge. So we used to do this as an in-house course. Myself or one of our other trainers would go to a business and we would spend a full day working with their team and showing them how to produce videos for LinkedIn.
Okay.
Overnight, we couldn't do that. We couldn't go to people's work, couldn't do that. So what we did was we moved it online. We moved that onto Zoom. So we started proportioning that up into smaller chunks. So rather than doing a full day's course, we did it in 1.5-hour chunks over 4 weeks. And we opened that up to the whole market sector, which meant that we weren't just having to book it for big organizations. We were doing it as an open course so individuals could just book on. It made it a lot more cost effective for them. And it made it a lot easier for us. Like I say, we've been dealing with people all across the UK when normally it would have mainly been people coming to the Geek Bunker or for us going out to their organisation. So a little bit of shift in strategy and messaging that you're putting out. We sold that course out within 24 hours. So for us, like I say, we looked at this and gone, what's happening at the moment is actually a positive. If we look at it like that, we can come out a lot stronger.
Interesting. So have you ever, so obviously you've transitioned to doing an online course. Is that something you've ever done before, or is it completely new to Sales Geek?
We've always done online courses. So we have hosted things prior to this on Zoom and things. So that's more of a hosted course. But what we are focusing now is a lot more on demand content. We understand the new generation that's coming through doesn't always want to be tied down to you have to be here for an hour and a half at this time. They want to be doing things quickly. So one of the other things that we did was we launched what's called the Sales Geek Hub, which is big community sales professionals. There are 500 people on there. It's a very open place where you can stick your hand up and go, I'm really struggling at the moment. There's a community section, but it's also got 400 or 500 different pieces of short form content on there between 2 and 3 minutes long. So if you're going to be getting on a web call or a Zoom call with someone and you're going, I do actually have to close this person on this call, I need some help, you can log on to the Sales Geek Hub, quickly look there for something around closing, about a technique that you could use, sometimes just to get yourself, boosted up and ready for that call and get sort of help yourself with your mental health. But that's something again that is, from a cost perspective, a heck of a lot cheaper than any of the other products that we did face to face. But we've seen a huge uplift in people going for that as attention has changed, because we're not doing the going to the pub and meeting people out, which means that more things are happening on a screen or on our phone, which I think you said at the very start has been a bit difficult to keep constantly staring at a screen for so long.
Cool. Nice little pitch there. Let's take some questions now. If anyone's got any questions, Absolutely, just a little reminder, please put them in the comments. We've got a few here already. So let's kick off. How many attempts to contact a lead before moving on?
Depends on the lead. If this is your ideal prospect that you have been absolutely going after for, decided at the start of the year, I'm going to get in contact with this person, I keep going and keep going. The one thing that I would say there is shift your approach though. If you constantly are ringing the reception desk, receptionist is ringing, no, they're not available. No, they're not available. No, they're not available. Try a different route. Have a look on LinkedIn, look at what they're doing before reaching out and messaging them on LinkedIn. Comment a few times on things that they've posted. See what that person is doing, see what is in their world, and see the best way to get in contact with them. I've got to say, I know cold calling seems to have gone off the radar. People aren't doing it anymore. It's one of the best ways to get in contact with people, but it's not the only way of getting in contact with people. We've got so many different routes now into what realistically is someone's phone and to get into their eye line. So I would change and shift your approach.
Cool. Okay. That's interesting, actually. There's another question here. You mentioned cold calling. This is something that I've always really shied away from. I'll be completely honest. It's nothing that I'm completely. If you ask me to call someone, even though I've been in business 15 years, I'd be petrified. I would not know what to say. But and I don't think I might have tried it like twice back in like 2008 or something. But so what's the best way to build rapport? The question is, best way to build rapport on a cold call?
First, as we talked before, make sure that you've done your research on that person. If you are just cold calling them completely off a spreadsheet, hello, is that Mr. Smith? It's Jonathan calling from Sales Geek. Just wanted to see if we can offer some sales training to you. You're going to get no, and it's not going to do anything for you. But talk about them. If you're going to call someone, hi, is that, use the first name. Hi, is that James? James, Jonathan at Sales Geek. It's just a quick one. I've been following you guys for quite a while on LinkedIn. I love that stuff that you're doing on a Wednesday, bringing people on.
Yeah.
How long are you going to be doing that for? Ask me questions, talk to me about me, find out what the next thing is that's coming up. People love talking about themselves. And for me, introductions in cold calls have always been this very specific. It's Jonathan calling from Sales Geek. We offer sales training for businesses all across the world, and we'll do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Make it about them. And if you make it about them, you will get responses and you will get them talking, which will lead to opportunities.
Cool. That's a very good answer, actually. Okay, next question. So are there any scenarios where you should go for the puppy dog close, or is it always an off-putting approach?
I think it would depend what you say the puppy dog close
I don't
know. I'm guessing when you say the puppy dog close, it's that those sort of the cat eyes out of Shrek, where the cat's looking at you going like that, holding its hat. I'm guessing if you're going like that, it's a little bit beggy. For me, a close shouldn't be something that we work up to, and then we go, are you going to buy this? Or you have to buy this now? It should very much be something that you're doing all along that process, and it shouldn't be, it's a process, not an event.
Yeah.
So you should always be closing the whole way through the call and always helping that client understand that at the end of it, they're going to be buying it. But I suppose that comes down a little bit to just making sure that we're qualifying effectively. If you qualified effectively, you realistically don't have to sit there and go, are we doing this?
And also as well, the close will, I think, vary depending on. So we've just closed a deal, which we've been literally working on for the best part of a year. Very, very slow burner. And it was like, I think in January, I went to New York to meet this particular company last June. And I was thinking by January, I was like, we might as well move on. This isn't going to happen. And suddenly, probably about a month ago, they kind of said, yeah, okay. So I think it shows perseverance sometimes pays off. You've got to just be persistent. You don't have to be super sort of high pressure, because some people that will work with, other people that won't. And again, it depends very much on the sale, what the deal is, what you're trying to sell. Like you can't always expect people to just make their mind up there and then. Especially when I think this was very big corporation, very big company. So it's not like a deal that we're just trying to sell like something for a fixed price and that's it. It's it's really building a relationship. Yeah. Is cold calling a good idea whilst working remotely?
Absolutely. I'm. You can probably tell I am quite in the cold calling camp. I think cold calling is a really good route to market if you've done that research. But the only difficulty that you do have, and I'm not going to say this is easy, but if you are cold calling on your own, it's very difficult. If you've got a team of people around you, you've got 3 or 4 other people cold calling, you can get momentum going. You get that buzz off the sales floor. For me, if I'm going to reach out to people here and sort of do some cold calling, sort of cold outreach to people that I've never spoken to, but have done some research on, like I said. I have to get myself pumped up, which means that I'm listening to the Rocky theme tune. I'm trying to get everything that I can to get myself in that mindset to go. And it's difficult. It isn't easy, but that's why I think at the moment, we keep calling it the 1% club. There's still this 1% of salespeople who are prepared to put themselves on the line, outreach to people like that. And these are the ones who are realistically getting the bigger results because they're just prepared to do it and prepared to put themselves on the line.
And I think you make an interesting point there. So what advice would you give to people who say are now cold calling from home and they were previously in an office? Because if you've got that support network around you, I think obviously the thing is with cold calling, you do have to be able to take a certain amount of rejection as well as some wins. Hopefully more wins than rejection. But I guess that's the thing. It is quite a relentless process, and sometimes. Having, as you said before, having that team around you is really kind of helping to spur you on. So what advice are you giving to companies who are kind of having to make that transition?
I think for me, it's very much around structure and doing short bursts of it. I mean, realistically, sitting at home cold calling yourself for an hour, 2 hours is too draining. You should be having those breaks in an hour's time. It always depends on the call. I mean, sometimes I'll cold call a client or cold call a business, and then I'll spend the next hour on the phone to that one person who's just actually picked up the phone. And I think it very much depends on if you get in contact. If you sat there for an hour constantly failing, and not getting in contact, that's really, really difficult. I suppose the other, just one thing that I will say on this is, if there was ever a time for cold calling, now is it, when everybody is working remotely. I've never found it easy to get in contact with decision makers. You can literally contact reception desks and they will put you straight through to decision makers. Or I actually rung a sales department the other day, main line onto the sales director's mobile, the inquiry line.
Why do you think? Why, that's interesting. So why do you think that is? Is that because that they haven't the line of communication is somewhat broken down? They can't say, "Oh, hang on, I'll put you on hold, John. Would you like to speak to this guy?" Oh yeah. So is it because they haven't? They can't do that. So they're just saying, "Okay, let's just put them through." And obviously then you get through to the decision maker's mobile, which again, I think they're more likely to answer than when their desk phone's ringing, and they're in the middle of a meeting or a task or whatever. So is that because people are more responsive at the moment? What do you think? What's your perspective on that?
Probably two reasons. I mean, this particular company that I contacted, I assume that they furloughed the sales team, which is logical to put on the sales. Actually, no, we've not furloughed any of the sales team. I'm just taking all the inquiries. I didn't get to the bottom of it, but what I suspect has happened there is they are getting less inquiries through their main line.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get less inquiries, you want your hottest closer picking up those inquiries, or your most senior person. Because if there's less of them, you want to be making more from that. And you assume that your top closer, your sales director, sales manager, the top of that department, probably have the best close rate. So realistically, I think that's why that they put it through there. I also think there was a little bit of panic. I mean, if you ring the Sales Geek line now, it's still on divert to my mobile, because when we went into the office and grabbed all the IT kit, we put it on divert to my mobile, because I knew that I'm probably going to be the most available to speak on the phone, or if not, I will make sure I get back to someone who leaves me a message. And that's just stayed there sort of ever since. So I think it depends on the business.
Okay, so I guess especially with like sort of small to medium sized businesses, the MD is going to be kind of more in control. They're going to be wanting to make sure that they've got a kind of full grasp over everything. Maybe it's easy to get through to them for that reason. Interesting. Sure. Yeah. Okay. How powerful is building a personal brand when it comes to sales? Should I focus on LinkedIn for building my personal brand in order to maximize leads?
Really interesting one, that. I would definitely say it's worth building a personal brand. We at Sales Geek, we focus on two sides of that. I think we've got individual personalities, I suppose, that we'll say on LinkedIn. But I think it really can stand you in good stead to have a good personal brand. People will buy from, and I think more people are buying from the individual now than are buying from the logo.
Yeah.
We want to trust the person that sat in front of us from the start of that process to the end of that process. And social media realistically gives you the chance to be in front of someone, to give some value, to get some trust without ever actually speaking to them. One of the reasons that we've grown so quickly as a business is around the LinkedIn content strategy that we have, which is around giving value. And we try and give out as many sales tips as we can. We try and give out as many strategic tips as we can, as much help from mental health perspective, to provide resources to salespeople out there. By doing that, when they have a problem that they actually want to solve by spending some money, or a bigger problem that they need to solve by spending some money, what are you going to do? Go on Google, or go to someone that you've already been watching for the last 2, 3, 4 months?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's interesting because I kind of did a 360. Years ago, I was very much the face of the brand. And then I sort of hid behind the brand a bit. And then more recently, I've started pushing out more and more content as me, alongside the content that the team are pushing out under the sort of the brand names that we run. Just because, I think you're right. People like to buy from people, or even if they're not necessarily kind of dealing with me directly. I think, that it kind of builds that rapport, it builds that credibility. And I think it's like something that anyone in any industry can do, really. It doesn't matter,
Absolutely.
If you consider yourself, particularly sales driven company, or you're doing something different, if you're a freelance consultant, it's demonstrating proof of knowledge, I think, basically, isn't it?
Absolutely. And building that trust, like I say, if you can build trust with someone without actually ever speaking to them, they end up already halfway down your sales process. They're already halfway down your funnel because they've had value from you. We've had it before where people have come to us. We call them ghost followers because A lot of the time as well, it's strange when you're social selling or social marketing, so rather than selling,
Yeah.
you get an inbound inquiry because this will be a person who's never liked, never commented, never shared anything that you've done. But they'll go, I've been following you for the last 2-3 months, really like your stuff, wondered if you'd come and have a conversation with us about doing some training. And you've already built that relationship without ever actually seeing them. It's a great tool to be using at the moment, social media.
It is, because you don't really need to sell to them at all. Then they're almost like pre-sold there, because they're pre-exposed to the content you've been putting out. One of the things I think was really interesting that I've seen Sales Geek doing is also your sort of daily meeting that you're streaming. Are you still doing that now? I saw it like a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that something you're still doing, or?
Absolutely, yeah. It's our gift out to the industry. If anyone wants to join us on that 8:30 to 9 o'clock every day, we'll be doing that definitely until the end of this week. We might be shifting the format up a little bit to change things up, which will be really exciting. For the rest of this week, though, anyone wants to log on to that 8:30 till 9 o'clock, you can just Google Sales Geek Huddle. It's called. That will take you to our website, and you'll be able to watch it on there. But that's half an hour of CPD that we do every single day, just to help salespeople all the way through this lockdown. We've done that every morning.
Yeah.
Just try and help provide a bit of routine. And routine was the biggest thing I've probably struggled with. And for me personally, delivering that or being on that with one of our other deliverers gave me some routine. But we've also seen a lot of salespeople coming on that going, first thing I do in the morning, I have my brew and I have my cornflakes and I watch the Sales Geek Huddle, then I start my day off. So anyone wants to join that, it's completely free of charge.
Interesting. So do you think that's worked well as a sort of an experiment for your company then? Obviously it's something for you to kind of keep in touch with your direct team, but how's it grown? Have you found that you're getting good results from it? Because I'm guessing you've never sort of done anything like that before, maybe.
We've done webinars before. We've normally done those for existing clients. I mean, we've done a similar thing before, which was more for existing clients. We've got a heck of a lot of existing clients that are still coming onto the huddle. But we're also working. I mean, we work in partnership with the Institute of Sales Management, so they've very kindly got behind the huddle as well. So they've been broadcasting out to the network. But being honest, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. 8:30 to 9 o'clock, if you've got kids, is not an easy time. You start to do that homeschooling bit. So over half term, it went down quite a lot. It's picked up quite a lot since. So real roller coaster. We'll definitely be carrying that on for the end of this week, and then moving on from that again. We'll be mixing that up slightly, which would be really good. But we'll be announcing that sort of stuff soon.
All right, Jonathan, thanks very much for your time today. It's been really interesting. Just to finish off, how can people get in touch? How can people find out more about Sales Geek?
Yeah, absolutely. Best thing to do is get in contact with me through LinkedIn if anyone wants to speak to us, either that or you just go on Google and type in salesgeek.co.uk, you'll get straight through to our website. But if you want to speak to me personally, even if it's just a couple of challenges you're having or issues, please feel free to give us a shout. LinkedIn's probably the best way, though. If you just search Jonathan Finch, that's Jonathan, Jonathan, Finch, Finch, and at Sales Geek, you'll get direct through to me, and I'll be more than happy to see if I can help.
All right, Jonathan, thanks very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure and been really, really interesting.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having me.
Cheers.